It all started after I moved into my new house. A cliche beginning, I know, but sometimes reality can be cliche. I had never experienced anything supernatural before, and although I was interested in such things, I never really expected anything extraordinary to happen to me. I managed to rent the house for a relatively cheap price. I didn't think much of it because the house was old and it was located in a not so great neighborhood. So I assumed I had just stumbled upon a good deal. After moving in and settling down, everything seemed fine for a while. I can't recall the exact moment when things began to feel off, as it all seemed quite insignificant at the time. I would leave a light on in the kitchen or bathroom, only to return and find it mysteriously turned off. Initially, I attributed it to my forgetfulness, assuming that I had simply forgotten to switch them off before leaving the room. But as time went on, I started deliberately leaving a couple of lights on to test my theory. Sometimes nothing would happen, but other times I would return to find the lights inexplicably switched off. It was during this period that I realized something peculiar was occurring. I wasn't exactly scared, just confused. I speculated that perhaps there was an issue with the electrical wiring or some malfunctioning electronics. To gather more evidence, I started leaving lights on more frequently, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious force responsible for the sporadic shutdowns. That's when things took an even stranger turn. The first truly unsettling incident took place one night when I left the kitchen and living room lights on while I went to sleep. I was abruptly awakened by a deep, rumbling growl emanating from the kitchen. From my bedroom, which had a direct line of sight to the living room through the hallway, I peered out, convinced that there was an intruder or some sort of animal in my house. As I strained my eyes to see, the living room light dimmed. Someone or something had flicked off the light from the kitchen. Another low growl echoed through the house, this time originating from the living room. My heart raced as I witnessed a black shadow dart across the hallway, and then the living room light abruptly vanished. Though I couldn't discern its exact nature, the figure appeared as a shapeless silhouette. But that didn't matter at the time. I was utterly terrified. I leaped out of bed and switched on the bedroom light, half expecting to find some malevolent presence within the room, ready to pounce. To my relief, there was nothing in the room. Taking a deep breath, I cautiously proceeded down the hallway towards the living room. As I reached the end of the hall, I practically sprinted to switch on the light there. Again, nothing. The same held true for the kitchen. Once more, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Starting to doubt my own sanity, I hesitated before turning off the kitchen light. Despite being a grown man, I found myself terrified of flicking that switch. Unashamedly, I admit that I spent that night with all the lights on, seeking solace in their reassuring glow. Little did I know that that was a big mistake. The next morning, I awoke to find all the lights turned off once again. As I tried to push myself out of bed, a jolt of pain shot through my body, causing me to wince. I removed the sheets to discover long red marks running across my legs and arms, as though I had been scratched during the night. Fear gripped me, but it paled in comparison to what I encountered through the house. Every light I had left on had been shattered. Every single light bulb that had emitted a glow the previous night lay broken, and every lamp was knocked over or smashed. My breath caught in my throat as I surveyed the scene before me. Something was deeply wrong, and it had attempted to harm me. I called in sick to work that day and immediately set out to replace all the lights. At that point, I wasn't sure what to do. Leaving the house seemed like a viable option, but despite the escalating terror, this place was my home. It was the first time I had ventured out on my own, and despite the horrors, I couldn't bring myself to abandon it, so I made the decision to stay. Little did I know that the nightmare was far from over. As the days turned into weeks, my fear of the dark grew. I found it difficult to sleep with the lights directly on in my bedroom, but I started leaving other lights on in the hallway and living room, providing me with enough illumination to navigate through the dark spaces. Almost every night I would awaken to the sound of growling and prowling in the living room, followed by the abrupt extinguishing of the lights. I dreaded the thought of confronting whatever lurked in the room, and instead huddled in my bed praying that it would never venture further. One night, after enduring this torment for an extended period, I reached my breaking point. I purchased a gun and turned on every light in the house. Sitting down in the middle of the living room, I clutched the gun tightly in one hand and held a baseball bat beside me. I waited. For a long time there was silence. It was around 2 a.m. when I began to hear it. Strangely, the growling came from behind me. Slowly, I turned my head to catch a glimpse of the hallway leading to my bedroom, and the familiar growl reached my ears. Swallowing hard, I gripped the gun in one hand and the bat in the other, taking slow steps to improve my view of the bedroom from the living room. Just as I started to gain a clear line of sight, a loud thump echoed through the house, followed by an inhuman roar. Startled, I jumped back, my heart pounding in my chest. Although my instinct was to confront the source of the noise, I was overcome with the fear at the thought of being in the same room as the entity. Instead, I found myself frozen in place, straining to listen amid the sounds of tearing and smashing. Amidst the chaos, I managed to discern an audible click, and then silence. Slowly, I crept back to glance down the hallway. Once again, the light was off. Taking a deep breath, I mustered my courage and cautiously advanced, my weapons at the ready. When I reached my bedroom and flicked the lights back on, I gasped in horror. My bed had been ravaged, torn apart as if some wild animal had leaped into it and shredded it to pieces. I approached the remnants of my bed, standing there in shock for who knows how long. Only when I heard a familiar growl did I finally turn around. Standing near my bedroom door, right by the light switch, was the first clear glimpse I had of the entity haunting me. It was a man. A decaying white figure with a mangled body that resembled a chew toy for dogs. His vacant eyes bore into mine, and I was too petrified to raise my weapons. He gazed at me for a moment before flicking off the light switch. In that moment, I let out a scream, unashamed of my terror. I bolted away, not caring if it was the same spot where the man had stood. I rushed past, swinging the bat wildly. Panic drove me forward, and soon I found myself in the living room, bathed in the safety of the brightness. I dared to glance back, only to witness the man once again positioned by the hallway light switch. He turned that one off too. At that point, I no longer wanted to fight. I simply wanted to find refuge. I dashed through the living room, seeking solace in the welcoming glow of the kitchen. Yet, the sound of the growling and scratching surrounded me, and I knew the entity was pursuing me. I looked back and saw the rotten, mangled figure once more switching off another light switch, plunging me into a terrifying darkness. Determined, I made my final stand in the living room. With trepidation, I approached the standing lamp, the only source of light remaining in the room. It had been my shield against the darkness, and I hoped it would continue to protect me. I waited for it to be extinguished, but to my surprise, it remained steadfastly illuminated. The room fell silent, and a sense of calm washed over me. For the first time in a while, there was no sign of imminent danger. In that moment, I found myself laughing. A mad, unhinged laugh. I believed I would finally be okay. I stepped closer to the lamp, my relief palpable, but then something caught my eye. I heard the growl again, this time emanating not far behind me but from the lamp itself. My eyes widened, fixated on the intensifying light. I stumbled backwards, losing my footing, and found myself sprawled on the floor, staring up at the blinding brightness. The once confronting glow had transformed into something scorching, oppressive and malevolent. I thought it would consume me, burn me away, and then it emerged. Words failed to describe the abomination that emerged from the lamp's light. It was grotesque, contoured, and seething with rage, yet Amidst the terrifying presence that struck me were its eyes, two blazing circles of pure malice, burning with hatred. They fixated on me. This entity was confined to this house, and it lashed out at anything it could reach. I prepared myself for a painful death, bracing for its onslaught. The light went out, plunging me once again into darkness. Relief washed over me as I lay on the ground, allowing my eyes to adjust to the absence of light. As the seconds ticked by, I discerned the outline of the mangled man standing by the lamp, his torn hand hovering over the switch. He gazed down at me, and in that moment, understanding flooded my mind. I comprehended the true nature of the events that had unfolded. The mangled man withdrew his hand from the switch and pointed a broken finger at the lamp before shaking his head. All I could do was nod in response. He had never intended to harm me. Throughout those countless incidents, he had been trying to protect me. That malevolent creature could only manifest itself in the light, and this mangled man had fought to keep me safe. He didn't want another soul to endure the same fate he did. The very next day, I moved out and never looked back. Whatever malevolent presence resided in that house remained confined within its walls, and to this day nothing has pursued me from any other light source. However, the memory of that encounter will forever haunt me. Each night in my new apartment, I religiously ensure every light is switched off, every curtain is drawn, and the darkness encloses me in a protective shield. I hope you had your fair share of goosebumps just like I did. It's stories like this that remind us how mysterious and unpredictable the world can be. If you enjoyed this haunting experience, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling content like this. Remember, the darkness holds secrets we can only begin to fathom. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and may you never encounter the shadows that lurk in the night. Thanks for joining me, and see you in the next thrilling adventure.